and these are my colleagues, Christian Free, Shandi, I forgot her name, surname Shandi, Van der Merwe, and then Shanae Swart. We are from CPT in Wellington. We are students. Our lecturer can unfortunately not be here today, but we are here representing our...
She didn't even look behind me.
So we are representing our university. I'm a fourth year and I know all three of them are third years. And in our second year we had the opportunity to work with a MOOC and to actually use it in a way that is academically resourceful for what we did in our year. So first off, what is a MOOC? So it's a course of study. You normally do it on, well, it is only online, so you can obviously find it on any source of a web. And then it's also for a large group of people. It's not just me that's doing it. There's a lot of people that are doing the same course as you. And then also there's a variety of courses. It's not necessarily just language. We did a language one. We did edX. We did a grammar course on it. But I know Shani has done quite a few, which we'll tell you about a bit later. But there's quite a different variety of courses. It doesn't necessarily have to be languages. I'll hand it over to Christian.
So in our experience, we looked at MOOCs. We're all education students taking English as our home language. So that was the context in which we used it and which we will be explaining from. So what we found for us is we did it as an enrichment for our language. Because we have a lot of literature periods, the lecturer felt there was a need for us to, for enrichment with our language. And then we got participation marks for it. What we found was, instead of having to have a certain set period, now this is your language period, as an additional period, when our schedules were already full of different subjects we had to do and things we had to do, we could go and complete this course anywhere online at any time, whether it would be at home or on campus. We could fit it into our schedules, which helped a lot instead of having to organize an entire class at the same time that fits everyone. Then the second advantage was, as I mentioned, we did it as an enrichment, so in our experience it enriched our language and our grammar. edX specifically was focused on that. We're also busy doing a course with Funza, which is also another language course, which serves again as enrichment for us. Then the nice thing about MOOCs are that it's usually from accredited universities. The course from edX that we did was originally from the University of Queensland, or they hosted it. So the lecturers that provided the course are from the University of Queensland. You usually find that the courses are from universities that you can get not accreditation in the sense for your degree, but you can get recognition for the course that you did. Usually you need to pay with them because then they mark it, but you can also have the advantages, you can do it for free. Then you won't get accreditation and they won't mark it to the same degree because it takes time from the lecturers, but there's a mutual marking, and that gets onto the next step. It gives students a global exposure. We would never have been able to see Australia's or the University of Queensland's language content or how they're working with it. Now we've got exposure from a different country, which we wouldn't have had here in South Africa. We had contact, the second one exposes us to other points of view. We had contact with other students from around the world, so it forms a bit of networking. Part of the course was we had to mark one another's work. So now all of a sudden it's not just us in the class and just this one class working together, but I've got access to people from all over the world taking part in this course.
Okay, so some of the challenges we encountered were, the biggest one was time consuming. So you've already got your course and you've got your notional hours for this course, and then at one point the lecturer comes to a point and said, okay, let's do some enrichment work, and we're going to use MOOCs and we use edX. Now, edX has a really great interface and it's really easy to use, but it also demands a certain amount of hours from you. So let's say you've got 70 notional hours, and then this might add 20, which could amount to another subject in something else that uses less notional hours. But that is hours that you have to work into your schedule. So yes, it's free. It's free schedule, and you can work it out in where you have off time. You can use a library and so on. But sometimes you don't have time, and you get home at 6 o'clock after your last class. You live far, you have to drive, and then you still have these 20 hours in one semester to work in somewhere. That can be quite challenging. And then further, the cost and reliability of internet connectivity services. So we mostly use our library's connectivity services, which we can use the Wi-Fi and so on. But unfortunately, it's stronger in some points of campus, so you would have to be in that building, and it's not always very quiet. You might actually want to use a library, but there's off today, so you have to go to the computer room, and that's a bit more noisy, and so on. And then when you come home, you might not even have that. Or even if you have a private connectivity service, like let's say in Wellington we have iBit, sometimes that's also not very reliable because of weather and high demand at the moment. It's a small town, the connections aren't already there. So there are all kinds of things that can come into account, and we all do something at the last minute, and then you have to submit a minute to 12, and that's the time that they reboot their systems. And then 5 minutes past 12, you minus 10%. So that was also quite a challenge, because you're trying to do it as the best you can, so you use every last minute, and unfortunately, if you're still working 10 minutes before you have to submit, you run the risk of not being able to do it well. Or you rush and you try and finish it, because you have to be in before then, and then the connectivity problem comes. And then you weigh your options, maybe I should just do it better and do 10 minutes late. Okay, so lack of mentorship and one-to-one interaction with course tutors. So there, we have the support of our classroom, we have the support of our lecturer, we are told what's going to happen, but when you get there and you have a question, you can't just ask someone. Someone is in front of the class and you can ask them, can you just quickly explain to me this? I don't understand this word. So it's a lot of extra time also goes into that, where you have to do your own research to maybe explain something more in depth to yourself, where someone else might have understood that off the bat. Because a lot of time we also do this in our second language or third language, because there aren't many MOOCs in Afrikaans. Then not necessarily relevant to exams of our course. So let's say we're doing certain language structures in our course, and then we do some enrichment work, and we have to finish that course, obviously. So it might be 20 notional hours, and 10 of those hours are relevant to what we are doing in class. But then you have to finish it, otherwise you have it incomplete, which also leads to the high dropout rate with MOOCs, because we might only need half of it, and we only have time for as much as we need to do. So then we just stop after 10 hours, we never finish it. And unfortunately, then on your account, you have a lot of unfinished things, and it looks like you're not a very diligent student. Then the increase in student workload, so that relates to how the notional hours builds up, and you have to add this to your courses. But it also goes to, sometimes you do, so some people feel required to finish that MOOC. Then they will go do that extra 10 notional hours, and then that's on top of what they already were doing. And then they might slack off in some other subject to make up for that. So they don't want anything incomplete on their profile.
Okay, I'm just going to do the examples of the different MOOCs that we have. And we have Coursera, Udemy, edX, and Khan Academy. We have had edX in our second year that we did, and it was actually really interesting. I enjoyed it, but it was quite time consuming. But otherwise, it was really nice. We had to do an assignment about it as well after we did the course, and it was good because we could go back to our assessments and look at what our progress was and everything. And Shania actually did the Khan Academy, and if she would like to just say something about that.
So the Khan Academy I found very fun compared to other ones we have done. Khan Academy it looks like a Lego block. So as you do it, you have to get, let's say, 100 points, and then you add a block. So you build a little man with a crown, and then you have to do many of these, and you can't get it if you have one thing wrong. So you have to practice. It's not like, I don't know if you know the app Duolingo, if you learn a new language. You have to get everything right at one point to get that badge. It's the same concept. You have to get every answer right. So it says 10 questions before you can move on. But every time you might get a different one wrong because you're trying to rush, you're just trying to finish it. So you learn to sit and quietly concentrate until you get all 10 correctly. But it's more about this very fun interface. So it's not like you're sitting there and you're, okay, reading a comprehension, answering the questions, going to the next thing. It's much more interactive, there are videos, the person also sounds like they're enjoying what they're doing. So as you go through it, it's like fun learning, if that makes sense. It's also nice, we can use it in our primary schools when we teach. But for students as well, we need a break. We have a lot of long lectures and it can be a bit one-tone-ish. So then it's nice to have that breakpoint. And it's just a simple way of explaining something. So we do a lot of higher work, so this is just more on our level sometimes. Yes.
So just in conclusion, just to go through what we did. So we did talk about what is a MOOC and where you can find it, obviously online. And then we did the advantages, the challenges, and we did examples as well. So please feel free when we have the Global Cafe to come ask us any questions if you do have. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Yeah, well done.
Thank you very much. You know, it really highlights the importance of having the students' voices when you are constructing your course design. So right now we will be moving into groups. So if we can ask the students.